This is Coach Jeff Booher with TriDot. You're listening to Triathlon Research Radio.
Welcome to Triathlon Research, the podcast that brings together the world's best triathlon coaches, athletes, equipment experts, and medical professionals to get you the right information that you need to race past your personal best and get more enjoyment out of your triathlon journey. Triathlon Research, where we teach you how to train smart. Here's your host, Suzanne Atkinson, MD, founder and head coach of Steel City Endurance.
Today I'm going to talk with Jeff Booher. He's the head coach of TriDot. And Jeff and I are going to talk for the next 35 to 45 minutes about the idea of being faster than you believe you can. Jeff has some very unique perspectives on the ideas of enjoyment of the sport, about triathletes being able to overcome conflicting goals in the sport, and being able to accept the belief that they can actually go faster than they think they can. One of Jeff's favorite saying is fast is fun and faster is funner. So stay tuned with us, and we're going to talk to Jeff about overcoming your conflicting beliefs about your speed, opening your mind to faster ways of training, being purposeful in your training, and how to deal with conflicting goals that you may have in your triathlon career. Jeff, thanks for joining me today. A couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about today have to do with triathletes and how fast or how not fast they are. I don't think that most people are as fast as they want to be. But something interesting that you've said to me is that you think that all triathletes are able to be much faster than they believe they can be. Absolutely.
We have at every level. I think it really starts from just a belief that they can be that fast. And then once that seeks in, then they're open to training more purposefully and getting a lot more enjoyment out of the sport. I know I had earlier, like within the past month, I had a pro, same thing. She's in the sport for more than 12 years, and she PR'd a 4:27 on a half Ironman, and was just ecstatic and just feeling phenomenal and great. And I'm getting these texts after she's there with her husband, her kids, and I just never thought I could go this fast. And so it just starts opening up, and then from that, in the subsequent weeks, then all of a sudden she's hitting workouts, that she has in her watts are 5 watts higher than she expected. It's just a ripple effect. Mm-hmm. And I see the same things with age groupers, and I think it's more common with age groupers because a lot of them don't have as high of aspirations as a pro. Yeah. So they come in, I'm new, I see these fast people, and that's not me. I'm the middle packer. I just finished, and there's all these mental excuses. Mm-hmm. And if they just realize that really, that they could be so much faster and get so much more enjoyment from the sport.
Now, that seems to me like it's a pretty big leap. I mean, let's just pretend that I'm coming to you for some personalized training, and I've got this history behind me. I didn't do endurance sports. I played things like soccer and volleyball, which are kind of short, sharp, more explosive sports. So when I go to run for a long time, it's just not super enjoyable for me, and I've never been fast. How would you start working with an athlete, given that type of a background where maybe I'm already saying to myself, I'll never be fast. I just want to finish and not hurt.
Yeah, I just try to get them away from those goals, just to stop thinking about those goals and to focus on what's the next workout and just let them see that steady progress. Mm-hmm. And as they start seeing steady progress and benchmarking against other people that they see, or just say, hey, well, if I could do that, then I can do this. And then all of a sudden, I think it's a gradual thing that their mind just finally accepts and starts dreaming and like, wow, I can be faster than that.
So,
and yeah, we even have this, in that same vein, we have a lot of kids. We have a junior program. And one of the sayings that our coach is working with the kids, and I help them too, we have a saying that we always tell them: fast is fun and faster is funner. And just really get them focused, because some of them just think when I go anything longer than a half mile or a mile, so some of the, depends on their age, is just real slow. And when they start getting faster, they start having fun and staying up with the friends, and workouts get easier, and they start seeing these goals and the accomplishments. Everything just gets just a lot more fun, and they just really enjoy it. And I think it's the same with adults.
Yeah. So you used the phrase at the beginning that when the belief sinks in that they can be faster. What you're saying to me is it's not necessarily like this is an open and shut door, but that the belief comes by experiencing small wins over and over.
Exactly. And I think when they look at training and what I do and or what they do, as an athlete, there's just so much chaos out there. There's so many beliefs and philosophies and theories, all this all over the place. It's just a big jumbled mess. And so, they tend to just go out and work hard and push themselves and plateau and not achieve very much. But when they see that there is a method, that there are methods out there and that there is a way, when we show them specific, here's how we measure and here's how we determine how much you're doing on this day and how much rest you get and you start quantifying, then they start seeing, hey, this is purposeful. They told me I would be this fast in 4 weeks and I am. And so now I will trust this and now I'll trust that,
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the purposefulness of it. When you say purposeful, I could imagine two different meanings of that. Meaning number one is that each training session that I do has a purpose in the way it relates to me getting faster at the end of this 4 week block. The other way I think of it is purposeful in that I'm going out for a run today. I'm going to find some sort of inner self-worth from it. What kind of meaning are you assigning to it? Or do you find both types of things happening?
I think both happen. I think the latter that you said, the meaning, I think that's something that's is transcendent and it does go with you from workout to workout. And you have to have that purpose and why are you doing it and make sure that that's consistent with the time you're putting in, the money you're putting in, the effort you're putting in, and making sure that that's aligned. But I do think, to the first one that you said, the purposefulness of the workout, I think everybody believes they're being purposeful. I don't think anyone goes out and says, I have no purpose for today. Or,
Sure.
The problem is so many are purposefully wrong. They're doing, their intent is noble and good, but they're just trial and error. And I know that there's a saying in construction, measure twice, cut once. Measure twice, cut once. Because you can't, once you cut, it's done. You can't redo it.
Right.
And so one of the things that we do, at TriDot is try to show them that a lot of people with their, Garmin's and heart rate monitors they're cutting once, and then what they measure is what they've already done.
Sure.
But they have nothing to measure what they should be doing or what they could be doing or what they're going to do next week. So they don't have those metrics for measuring twice. They're not measuring at all. They're going out with the intention.
Right.
And then they measure what they've already cut. But that day, that hour, that session's gone. And all they can look at is, here's a bunch of things that I've cut. They don't know how to fit all those pieces together.
Sure. I really like that analogy. It's almost like using the data. You're looking at things that have been done in the past without having any idea of how to take that information and bring it to the future for more, as you say, more purposeful training.
Exactly. Yeah. We have a lot of athletes love the concept or the idea of, I want to be self-sufficient. I want to be able to, that there's a pride in taking myself to, this level of performance and coaching myself there. And I'm going to learn as I go. And funny that it dawns on them a lot of times, a couple of years into the process. One is when they see other people advancing faster, or even if they do have great gains, when they start learning more and more about physiology and all the factors that go, their height, their weight, how long they've been doing the sport, their performance level, is as soon as they start introducing all these different variables in training and getting results, they go into year 2, all the variables have changed.
Right.
So if they learned how to train themselves last year with 2 years experience, now they have, 10 pounds lighter, 1 year older, all these variables have changed. Another year under their belt, their volume, their workload capacity is different. Everything changes. And so they relearn it, trial and error, maybe get 50, 60% right. And then the next year, the same thing. Everything changes.
One of the things really interesting is that I agree with you 100% that I don't think there's any triathlete out there, maybe save one or two, that don't think that what they're doing is the right thing. Maybe I'm not phrasing that correctly, but I think everybody has good intentions. Nobody's going out doing a run workout or a swim or a long bike saying, I hope I'm going to be a worse triathlete after I finish this run. It's always they're wanting to get better, but maybe they don't know what better is. Maybe they don't have a definition of it, or they don't know the best path from A to B. So they're doing what others are doing. They're matching their training schedules with their friends when those friends may be at completely different levels.
Right.
How do you help athletes who want to enjoy the social aspect of the sport, but still go and do personalized training that's purposeful for their goals?
Yeah, we have a bunch of that. We have, and it comes in a variety of I guess different fashions. Some athletes love to just race all the time, And so they just need to recognize that certain races aren't conducive to developing your fitness and performance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they want to go do a 30K trail run, but they're training for Olympic triathlons or Ironman, or, you know, they do different things, they just don't coincide. So just being honest with themselves and letting them see the pros and cons of doing that and make their value judgment and go accordingly, and then celebrate it. Great. That's what you want to do. Sometimes it's having them select when during the season do they do those other races, and selecting races that where it won't interfere or conflict. And then that's race related. Then there's the training related, and that's where we can really help them to organize their week, to where maybe they're doing master swims and they just really love the social and getting together with the group, or they're doing some, you know, a training ride during the week with friends. And so we're allowing them to make that the easier ride or the less purposeful ride. Mm-hmm. Or if a lot of the athletes are very close to their ability level, they might talk, you know, the other athletes that are doing more random training to do their set. Say, hey, I'll bring the set, do what I'm doing. Yeah. And then they push each other and they're doing what they need to do. Yeah. And then another strategy of setting aside even a longer ride, setting aside a time. Okay, we're going to go easy for 30 minutes. Then I need to get 1 hour of specific sets, you know, if that works. And then we're going to just regroup and then ride easy for the last hour and a half, or, you know, something, just developing a plan where they can make the two coexist.
Those are all really great practical tips for triathletes. Going back to what you said about differences in age, body mass, years of experience, I would hate to have a triathlete turn to his buddy, his training partner, and say, hey, I can't train with you anymore because I'm 5 years older than you and 10 pounds lighter. If I'm going out for a weekend ride, and there's someone who matches me in pace, if that long ride matches my training schedule, is it okay to just ride with someone who's riding at the same speed as you are? Does that question make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's where the biggest thing, if people's performance is matched and that's in the training set is what they both should be doing, then there's no problem with that at all. Mm-hmm. What's likely happening is it's more than that one specific day. It's how many hours they're doing during the week, how much time of that is at certain quality, at certain effort levels, how many minutes at each one, how much recovery or rest are they getting. And then looking at that, you know, kind of a microcycle over maybe, a week and a half to 2 weeks, and how much workload is in there. And so when they're trying to really mirror either doing it randomly or mirror someone else's entire workout program, is where the harm comes in, because those two athletes are very, very different. But on one particular day, that could be a prescribed training that they both should do. That
works for both people. So
but one may do an quality workout 2 days later. The other may have, nothing for another week.
Yeah.
It's very intense.
Yeah. Or if you've got two people, very different abilities, and I get this with some husband and wife couples that I train, where one's a much faster runner than the other. If the faster person has an easy recovery day and they're able to run at a pace that's not pulling the partner out of their prescribed training zone, that can be a nice way for two people to spend time together who do have very different ability levels.
Absolutely. I think that works great. There's a lot of timing things. It's another pro female, same deal. She'll do a quality run, a tempo run, and her husband's on his bike. Yeah. So that's how they even out. He'll just easy jog, just wants to get outside and, stretch his legs a little bit, and she's running hard.
Oh, that's nice.
Others will jump on a trainer and they may do a quality, the first 45 minutes of intervals side by side on two trainers. And then they get off of that and just ride easy for another hour if that's their workout. So they're able to stay together to talk and then, enjoy the latter part.
Right.
Of got together.
Right. So I guess that goes into the theme of enjoyment, really being able to enjoy your training. And just because you've got a specific training plan in front of you, it doesn't mean that you can't find a way to enjoy that with another person. You've just rattled off 6 or 8 different ways to integrate your training with someone else who's of a different ability.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just a little bit of, intentionality to it and planning and making it work. And as long as expectations and your training buddies are good with that and they're willing to kind of work with you to make that happen, I think it's not a big problem.
Yeah. I think often a triathlete who's hired a coach and has a very specific training plan and really wants to get in a specific workout, frequently the friends who are not following specific plans, who are following the random, what do I feel like doing today plan, it seems like they're usually willing to say, yeah, I'll have some structure today. Let's do what you're doing. And so for that one person who's trying to get things to work out for them just right, it can be pretty easy to find training partners as long as you've got other people who are willing to play along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely agree. I see a lot of our athletes do that same thing. They'll say, hey, I need to do this ride this weekend. Who's up for it? And then just get people that want to do that. If people
That's
don't,
cool.
then
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about an alignment between a consistent alignment between the time that an athlete's spending and the money that they're spending in the sport, and whether or not that aligns with your goals. Can you give me an example of what you mean by someone whose time and money goals are not aligned with what they're actually doing?
Yeah, there's a ton of this. There's a lot of athletes who say my goal is to qualify for Kona or Team USA or Sprint Nationals, or some stated goal, and then they say, but I only have enough money either for this amount of coaching or for this type of bike or for whatever, and they make some decisions that are just totally out of sync. I had one athlete who was doing his own random training, and he just wanted to finish. His goal was, I want to finish half. And it was like 9 months away, so it's easy to do. And that was his big goal. That's what he said his goal was. He said, I don't have money to get coaching.
Yeah.
But he got a $4,000 bike,
right.
Vacation to Tuscany, and he was Italy literally, and he went and did this out of country triathlon. So he spent several $1,000s planning this stuff 9 months out to do a half. And then I spoke with him probably 3 months before, and he wasn't sure if he's going to go, because he started training and didn't make the progress that he thought he would, and he didn't think he could finish. And so he's having all this internal stress, but his goal was to go finish this race. So he spent all the money, and relatively it's just such a small piece of just making your training time. And that's the most valuable aspect of your training that's going to give you the most benefit, is just making that purposeful. So in that case, it was totally out of sync. Him saying that he wanted to finish, and this was a big bucket list goal, but his was more about spending the money and going on the trip, and maybe it's taking his family with him. Maybe it was, bragging to his friends. I don't know, but all that's good and all that's fine. But just make sure that those are in sync.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's real important for the athlete to know and understand what their goals are. And so a lot of athletes don't understand internally quite what their goal is, or maybe they've got some fixed false beliefs about what they should be doing because they read magazines or articles on the web, when internally their whole reason for doing triathlon may be completely different. So I wanted to share with you an example of an athlete that I'm working with right now, and just see what your advice for him would be, or how you may handle things for someone like this, because I'm sure it's not uncommon. This athlete he works as a lawyer, a very high stress job, as you can imagine, and got into triathlons a year ago. So this is his second year, and he's completed one Olympic distance triathlon up to this point. And he hired me over the winter because he wanted his goals that he described to me. He wanted to get away from the weight room and from some strength work that he was doing. Wanted to develop himself more aerobically because he thought it would be healthier. He wanted stress relief from work, and he wanted to improve his speed for his upcoming race this year. So we've worked together for 2 or 3 months, and we saw continuous steady progress in his his metrics, and we really did a good job, I think, of balancing the amount of training time he was doing versus work. It wasn't an excessive amount of time. And through all this, he was really impressed. He's like, hey, I'm faster now than I was at the end of last summer. This is great. And at no point did he ever express that he felt overtrained or overtired or over-fatigued. So from my perspective as a coach, he told me his goals are he wants to be faster. He's faster now. He's not getting tired. He still seems to be enjoying the training. It seems like everything's going along track. And then I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. And I thought, uh-oh, did I say something wrong? So when we finally got back in touch, what ended up happening is that because I was helping him prepare with the goals that he had described to me, he ended up putting a lot of stress on himself to go and meet these markers, do the interval work, not missing a planned workout, and it ended up stressing him out way more than he was prepared for. And it didn't end up being the balance that he wanted from his job. So we completely revamped things. He says, I really enjoy it when I go out for a run and I hear the birds and I can smell the flowers, and that's what I want on my run. I don't want to do an interval. I don't want to be looking at my pace watch or staring at my heart rate. So, that's fine with me. This is his enjoyment is in going out and kind of getting the Zen-like meditative part. So we switched things up for him. He's getting a lot more enjoyment out of his training, but then I got this kind of surprising email from him, and it said, do you think I'll be prepared for my triathlon in June? I said, well, what do you mean prepared? He says, do you think I can do it in such and such an amount of time? And so he's telling me on one hand that he doesn't want the stress of the structured workouts, but on the other hand, he wants to do it in a certain time. So there's a lot of conflict going on internally. And, I don't think he's the only one. He's not the only one with a difficult job. And that's just one example. How would you, what kind of advice do you have for an athlete like that, as far as these conflicting goals and his actions not aligning with his stated desires?
Yeah, I think the only thing you can do is just what you did, is have that conversation with them and say, well, okay, here's two things, and point that out that they're conflicting. I think a lot of times athletes don't realize that. I think in their dealing with coach, a lot of them haven't had coaches before or since they were kids.
Yeah.
And they really don't know to be, forthcoming and proactive with that information and what they're thinking and what they're feeling. They, depends on what their view and their role of their coaches. And I think that comes with building rapport over time and having those discussions and making those mistakes. And I wish I'd have told you that. And, you're able to give them that perspective and tell stories of other athletes and say, well, which is more important to you? You need to make a choice. And I think a lot of times some of that, they're setting themselves up for false choices.
Yep.
They say either I get stressed out and get this time that I want, or I enjoy it and,
right,
have fun with the sport. I think you can do both. And so a lot of that stress is self-induced. And
yep.
I find that a lot with our athletes, that one, a lot of athletes look for a lot of variety for variety's sake. And anything that's monotonous, they get very bored with. But there's a lot of monotonous training and repeated, very purposeful sets that are extremely productive. And so being able to appreciate those and looking at them in a different way. And then the specificity of some of those workouts. So you have these specific intervals and specific rest periods and heart rate or power or whatever it is. And then when athletes are unable to do those, they feel stressed out, like they failed, like they haven't done something. Or if a whole workout, whole session, or they work late, too much stress, trouble at home, any number of things, they just check it off, don't do it, and go on. And once they're okay with that, and sometimes it's the coach saying that it's okay, just let it go. No fitness is made by one or two sessions. It's the cumulative effect of all of the sessions. And so when they understand that they can do, 3 months worth of training and miss X% of them, and how to just skip it and go on and enjoy, or looking at a specific session and your rest, your diet. There's so many things during the day that affect your performance for that session. And it's just like they want to tank the whole thing. It's just like a kid in grade school taking a test. They get a C on a paper. That doesn't mean you change the whole curriculum. Right. You just give them a little remediation around that one thing, or say, okay, it's a C. Your whole average is still a B+.
Right. There's still lots of other
no big deal.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I wanted to share that story with you. And I like the way you phrase it. It's a false dichotomy. People get stressed out because they want to have fun, but gee, I want to get faster and finish under this time. But you're saying you can do both.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
faster's fun.
Tell me, what makes fast fun? I mean, I've personally experienced some things, particularly with swimming, where as swimming develops and I swim faster, it is more enjoyable, not only because I'm seeing a faster time on the pace clock, but just because that movement creates a lot of satisfaction. Moving faster is funner. Well, what's your perspective of what makes fast fun?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm 45 this year, so I just like beating the young guys. I think that's cool. Someone 20 years younger or whatever, and that's just fun, competitive. And I love to encourage them, and more power to them if they beat me. But that's a personal thing. It's just the competitiveness and getting goals and getting better. And I've seen so many athletes get better on into their 60s. Yeah, and literally say, we had a guy that placed fourth in his age group at a 70.3 and said, I'm in better shape now than I was when I was 45. And wow. He'd been a runner, been doing Ironman triathlons and all that. And so that's super cool. I think for other people, being faster means being able, even if they're not highly competitive, they're more maybe social or more just at enjoyment. If they're able to perform better, one is they're going to get injured less frequently. They're going to be able to hang on to the group or ride with the group with less effort.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be able to be in there talking with everybody else and not panting and gasping for air while everyone else is cutting up and having fun.
Right. That sure makes it more fun.
Yeah, they're going to be able to recover quicker after the different sessions and enjoy their family more.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's so many things. And then the biggest thing, and this is, I can't believe I didn't lead with this, is when athletes perform better, your performance dictates the duration of your race effort, which dictates how much training time is required to prepare for the event.
Sure.
So when you have athletes that are performing better and seeing ginormous gains early in the season or in the off season, and they keep progressing, then the race splits. They're training. We have people, instead of training for a 15-hour Ironman, train for a 12-hour Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
And then the training time required for that 12-hour effort is much less.
Yeah.
And the bulk of our athletes will do that in under 13 to 15 hours with only a couple weeks over 13 hours of training.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go sub 12, sub 10, all in there.
Yeah.
And so I think that allows you to do the sport longer. And so I think, I'm rambling on here, but some of that burnout that the people that get stressed and don't enjoy,
sure,
is they're working so hard for so long and it takes such a toll. But if you're able to participate in the sport and cut your time that you have to invest by 20, 30%
mm-hmm.
and still perform better, then you can keep doing it longer with fewer injuries. It's just, I think there's just many, different aspects of what makes it more enjoyable and more sustainable, for health and friendships, relationships, all that.
And I think that triathletes who are just starting out, if you're in that category and you're listening to this podcast, the sooner you start to find ways to really enjoy it, the more you're going to look forward to it, and the more you'll stick with it, and the more gains you're going to make. There's the benefit of just having the consistency in training, and if you let yourself get stressed out about training, I know this is true for me. If I have a run or something a certain route that I didn't enjoy and I was really sore for the next few days, I might take like 4 or 5 days off from a run. And then I feel worse when I go back to it because I just waited too long. So for me, finding ways to make my runs really fun. I've got a beautiful city park that's 2 blocks from my house. If I can go for a trail run, if it's a sunny day out and I can just go on the sunny route run rather than the shady route run, it makes a really big difference in how much I enjoy things, let alone the additional purposefulness of what kind of intensity or sessions I'm doing, but just finding ways to make the training itself fun.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think especially on the lower intensity days where the exact pace is a lot less important. Mm-hmm. A lot of those days, take 1 or 2 days a week and don't wear the Garmin or anything. Just mm-hmm. go on perceived effort real easy. Don't look at anything.
Yeah.
Just enjoy.
That reminds me of a story of one of my swimmers that I'm working with, and see if you can relate to this. She had been doing a lot of swim training, very, very dedicated athlete, fits into that exact category that we talked about. Every time she would go out to swim, she was wanting to do the right thing, but it just wasn't resulting in gains. And after the end of every swim, she would look at her Garmin to see how fast she went. And at the end of every swim, she would say, gee, I'm really slow. That was her internal talk. And when we first started working together, I was curious. I wanted the Garmin data when I wasn't with her doing a lesson so I could see her performance, but just having the watch on her wrist caused her to swim a different way, caused her to think a different way, caused her to not focus on the skills and the techniques. And so it was not a useful tool in any means. It was actually a harmful tool for her. So we spent many months with her just not wearing the tracking device so that she could get some of these more enjoyable experiences so that she would keep swimming and keep practicing the skills. And over the past few weeks, reintroducing the Garmin very carefully, one of the exercises I gave to her was to swim 4 sets of 400. And she was supposed to use her tempo trainer for the first set and the third set at a tempo that I specified for her. And for the second and the fourth set, to not use the tempo trainer and just see if she can maintain the same tempo. Can you do the same thing without the tempo trainer? So there's a very specific purpose in the workout. When she looked at her Garmin at the end of that workout, her very first thought was, gee, I'm slow. And so I said to her, well, what about your tempo? Did your tempo stay the same in the sets where you didn't have the tempo trainer on? And then all of a sudden a light bulb went off in her head. And she was like, you know what? You're right. I was able to hold the same tempo that I did with the Tempo trainer, but I didn't have to use it. So all of a sudden she started to recognize that there were some ways that she can use this technology for the process of training and not just looking at the end result of speed. And as a result of that, she's continued to get faster and faster over the past few weeks.
That's great. I love that. I have a lot of athletes, all of our coaches do, that they're really focused on every single session. They want a PR every session, or they want to, make those gains in every single session, versus just do the workout, take your medicine, different medicines you get from a doctor and you're a doctor, you know this, just wait. You're not going to feel the effects or the benefits for 3 days, 5 days. There's workouts that you're not going to feel for 3 weeks, so just go do the workout and trust the process, enjoy what you're doing. And you'll see the gains.
Right.
So
yeah,
I think that's just a mental perspective that light bulb comes off. They don't have a great quality coach like you to tell them and to teach them and to put them through a process where that aha moment happens. For some athletes, it's just a long, long, long time.
Yeah. And, it keeps bringing me back to the statement you made at the very, very beginning where you said, the belief sinks in that they can be a faster athlete. I just want to revisit that again and see if you have any other insight about the things that we say to ourselves that hold us back. How do you see people overcoming that sort of limiting self-perception? Is that too broad of a question?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. So let's take the example of the woman I just described where her constant mental feedback is, I'm a slow swimmer, I'm a slow swimmer, I'm a slow swimmer. In your experience working with athletes, what are some of the tools that you use to help people see and recognize progress? I
think it's just focusing them on the process.
Mm-hmm.
The process leads to progress. So when they're not focused on an outcome, on a benchmark, on a time trial assessment that's going to happen in 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, if they just focus on going easy when it's time to go easy, go moderate pace or fast, they have very specific goals. Just do that particular workout as best you can. And if you don't hit the exact watts, if anything that happens, don't worry. Your goal is to do it as the best you can. Mm-hmm. And so as long as they do that, they're going to see goals over time. They're going to have their ups and downs, but they'll see that. And so really reminding them, giving them, attaboys, attagirls, on the sessions where they said, I gave it everything I had, but I didn't hit this pace, or I didn't. A great job. That's what you did. You had you worked all night through the night shift. You did whatever, good, great, way to put in the effort. Mm-hmm. And they get those pat on the backs, and then they see when they are recovered and they feel better 2 weeks later. And then I try to make a note to circle back around. So when they do, have that next assessment or whatever it is, and show the gain, the progress, and say, now you remember 2 weeks ago when you had the session and it didn't go too well because you were tired and you were dealing with the kids or whatever, and help them remind them of that circumstance. And it doesn't take but 2 or 3 times of that, where when those times happen and come up again, they're going, this is, I remember this. I've been here before. I felt like this before. I've thought this before. And
right.
Just retraining, those internal stories that they're telling in their head.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to use the term conditioning, sort of reconditioning people to recognize that a struggle on one day does not mean lack of progress 2 or 3 weeks down the road.
Exactly.
So do you find that there are differences in athlete personalities where some athletes require a lot more of that reconditioning and retraining process for the mental talk?
Absolutely. I think there are a lot that are, very emotion driven, and others that you just let it go. They'll look at, you explain something, logically, and they just accept it and go with it. I think it's just like any other personality or a way of thinking that and like athletes coming into training, there's some that just believe these arbitrary guidelines and they just live by that. They beliefs of volume or any kind of, different, how many days a week should be hard.
Yeah.
I should only have 1 hard session per week and this rule. And then I start asking them, so, what defines hard? If you go 2 minutes hard, does that count as that,
right.
What if you did 2 minutes hard 4 days a week? Would that be too much? Or, well, I guess it does matter how much hard you do and how hard the hard is, and start breaking down some of those things, and then kind of loosens up their mind, and they're willing to accept and think differently and view what they're doing differently, view their results differently. And then that leads to just kind of a blank canvas. And so where you're able to form some very beneficial habits and some healthy, sustainable attitudes toward their training.
Now you have a kids team as well that you work with, or a juniors team?
We do. It's a youth and junior high performance team, USAT high performance team.
Do you feel like it's a little bit easier to get that sort of response out of kids than it is out of adults? Or is it the same sort of process where you're conditioning them to accept hard days as being okay, or days of struggle as being okay?
I think there's a lot of lessons. There's a whole lot of similarities. I think it's quite similar. There are athletes, younger athletes that are from, volleyball and wrestling and hockey and, some of these, more fast twitch, and they think they're slow. And so as soon as you go, okay, we're going to do sprints, they're cruising around and they're doing them with short rest. But then you say, okay, we're going to run a half mile, and then they slow way down.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just the same. They believe, that they don't have the capacity to do this. And so some of that takes a lot of time. Some of them are doing it, same as adults, for friends and fun, and they enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Others are super competitive. They're running way too fast in every single workout because they want to come in first,
right?
Or with the first person. And so, getting them to learn their different gears and their different effort levels, and that, a lot of them, the younger they are, they have, 2 speeds, off and on.
Yeah.
And so it is, I think the same personalities exist in a little different ways and for a little different reasons, but mm-hmm. I think those are the same exact attitudes and perceptions and processes that people learn and have to relearn or condition themselves as a child or as an adult.
What about just the theme of overall enjoying the training? First of all, just enjoying it to go out there and doing it, and then enjoying the satisfaction of getting faster. Any other similarities or differences you see between the spectrum of ages from, young preteens to teenagers to early college age to grown adults?
I think it's pretty similar. Mm-hmm. I know that there is that, invincible years from the 16 to 25-ish,
uh-huh.
Where they're invincible and risk takers and just kind of go for it, and their bodies recover fast. They have all that energy, so they see gains very quickly. I think they take them for granted.
Yeah.
They can do bad training. They can do all kinds of things and still progress. Mm-hmm. And it's the same way for anyone brand new to the sport. They're going to see a lot of gains just from going to less active to more active.
Mm-hmm.
And so that shift. But then I think for the older that adults get and the older that they are, that learning to settle down, that the progressions and the growth comes slower, and they have to be more purposeful.
Yeah.
And they can't rely on that athleticism that they may have had earlier. Some of that, as muscle mass goes and power goes, and injuries take longer to recover from, and they never fully recover.
Mm-hmm.
Just all of those things. I think that's something that I'm starting to have to deal with even at 45. But I think that's a harder transition because there's just many more years have gone into their mindset.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we're winding down on time here, Jeff. Wanted to give you a chance to share anything helpful for people who are listening. For example, are there any great books that you would recommend, motivational books or books about helping people learn to accept the belief that they can be faster or get rid of limiting beliefs? Or what kind of resources do you direct people to? That's kind of a broad question as well, but what do you have to share with people other than giving you a direct call on the phone and chatting with you for an hour?
Yeah, I guess, if I was I think that's very personal, what motivates people in different ways and what speaks to them, I guess, in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I would take it to even a level, out of sport, just a higher level. I would refer people to the Bible, honestly. And mm-hmm. I mean, that's my inspiration comes from that, and seeing the purpose in what I'm doing. And, if someone's not a Christian, it's the same mentality of this is just a sport. They shouldn't be doing this sport at the expense of their family, at the expense of their health, of their kids, of all of these other things. And so if they can see how to use the interactions with the people that they come in contact with to just be a blessing to other people, to encourage them to invest in their lives, to be a good example, racing for causes. There's so many different ways to incorporate enduring meaning and have an impact in this world
mm-hmm.
for good, and to do that through the sport. And it's so much, it's more fun. So beyond faster is funner. That's even more funner. So if they have this higher purpose and this reason that they do what they do, the same reason that gets them up in the morning to go to work, or the same reason that gets them to be a good dad or mom or, husband or wife or whatever that is, if that same thing they can attach to and
mm-hmm.
be the best triathlete they can be, and keep things in perspective, keep the high priorities high and don't do the lower priorities at the expense of the higher ones. I would do that. what that motivation is elsewhere, and there is their reason for being. What are they put on this earth for? And then figure out how to blend that into this activity and this fun thing. And we're just privileged to be able to have the health and the resources to be able to do.
Yeah. Since we're kind of on this topic, do you want to take a minute and describe what Try for Him is all about and the team jerseys that we see on your website?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So there's a lot. It's a Christian triathlon club, and it's really led at the local level. And so we just have athletes out there that are kind of united, we say, in sport and spirit, both. They share a love for Jesus Christ at the same time as they love the sport and being healthy. And so that's their primary goal is our mission statement is to honor God through our effort. Our honor God, glorify Jesus, and love others. So they're going to honor God with their effort, their attitude, their sportsmanship. They're going to glorify Jesus Christ as the reason that they're doing it. And he loved us first. And so we're loving other people. And that leads into the last one, is just loving other people, whether it's, we host mission trips. We've gone to, orphanages and abused women's shelters and down in Guatemala and pancake breakfasts and, all kinds of just little stuff of how can you use this sport to minister and to be a blessing for other people when they need it. And there are different, we're about 20 different countries, I guess, have athletes that are racing and just doing life with friends. And
wow, that's great. I had no idea that it was that big.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Very cool. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and I really appreciate your unique perspective. And I hope that you, the listener, have gotten a lot out of this. And we'll give you some information on where you can learn more about Jeff Booher and Try Coaching, as well as Try for Him. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Suzanne. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Triathlon Research. To get a full transcript of the show and all past shows, please go to triathlonresearch.org/podcast. To get notified of future Triathlon Research podcast episodes, join our mailing list at triathlonresearch.org/equipment to get our next show delivered straight to your email inbox. In addition, you will get our free triathlon equipment video review series from the world's best triathlon coaches, including 6-time Olympic coach Bobby McKee, Tri-Dot Systems founder Jeff Booher, and Total Immersion Swimming founder Terry Laughlin. So keep listening to Triathlon Research. Train smart.